This is not a story. This is a warning. Across America, there are places where the nightmares never end, and the truth was buried with the dead. Tonight, we open another door. Welcome to the American Nightmare. It started as a normal night, the kind that passes without leaving anything behind. The house sat back from the road in rural Kentucky, far enough out that traffic wasn't something you noticed after dark. Beyond the front yard was open land, uneven and quiet, and beyond that, a stretch of trees that ran along the edge of the property like a boundary line. At night, everything outside blended together, field, brush, woods, until it was just one continuous wall of darkness. Inside, the house felt steady. Lights were on. A television played low in the background. Conversations came and went without much thought. It was the kind of environment where nothing demanded attention. That changed with the dogs. Both of them reacted at the same time. Not loud barking, not panic, something more focused, low, restrained, constant. Their attention fixed toward the same direction, ears forward, bodies tense, like they had locked onto something specific. At first, no one moved. Animals passed through the property often enough that it wasn't unusual. Deer moved through the field. Smaller things slipped through the brush. It wasn't worth reacting to every sound outside. But the dogs didn't let it go. Minutes passed, and they remained exactly the same, still facing the tree line, still alert, still tracking something that hadn't moved on. That's when someone finally stood up. They walked toward the window slowly, more out of curiosity than concern, and pulled the curtain back just enough to look out. At first there was nothing, just the yard, the edge of the field, and the dark line of trees beyond it. Then, something separated itself from the darkness, not by movement, by presence. A shape that hadn't been noticeable until the eye adjusted. It stood at the edge of the property, positioned exactly where the light from the house stopped reaching the ground. The porch light spilled out across the yard, but only so far. Beyond that, everything was dim, undefined. And right there, at that exact boundary, was a figure. The outline was human enough that the brain tried to process it quickly. Height, shoulders, posture. It all fit within what should have been familiar. But the longer they looked, the more something felt off. There were no details, no clothing visible, no separation of features, no indication of anything beyond the silhouette itself. And the face, there wasn't anything there at all. Not shadowed, not turned away, just absent. The person at the window didn't speak right away. They leaned closer, trying to pick up something, any detail that would make it make sense. Then, quietly, "There's someone out there." That was enough to pull the others in. Now there were multiple people standing near the window, looking toward the same place, trying to understand what they were seeing. The figure hadn't come closer, but it hadn't gone anywhere either. Someone reached over and flipped on the porch light. The yard brightened instantly, pushing the edge of visibility further out. For a moment, it felt like that should have changed something. It didn't. The figure remained just beyond the light again, repositioned without any clear movement, still at the exact point where brightness faded into darkness. That's when the unease settled in. A person would react, step back, shield their eyes, move out of direct view. This one didn't. Inside the house, someone shifted their weight, took a small step to the side. Outside, the figure adjusted. Not abruptly, not in a way that drew immediate attention, but enough. Enough to remain aligned with the movement inside. That was the moment everything slowed down. No one spoke, because now it wasn't just someone standing in the yard. It was something aware of where they were, tracking them without hesitation. Then, from the side of the house, just out of view of the main window, another shape appeared. Not approaching from the field, not coming from the road. It was simply there. Now there were two, and neither of them had made a sound coming in. The second figure changed everything. Up to that point, there had still been room to explain it. One person outside, standing too far out in the field, behaving in a way that didn't quite make sense, but still within the range of something human. Now there were two, and they hadn't arrived from the same direction. Inside the house, the shift was immediate. The television was turned off without anyone needing to say it. The sound cut out, and with it, any sense of normalcy that had been holding the room together. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was aware. No one wanted to stay at the main window anymore. They moved carefully through the house, spreading out just enough to check the other sides without fully separating. Every step felt louder than it should have. Floorboards carried weight differently now. Even breathing felt noticeable. The kitchen window gave a view of the side yard, a narrow stretch of ground, partially lit, partially lost to shadow. At first glance, nothing. Then something changed. Not quickly, not in a way that immediately drew attention. Something rose into view from below the frame, slowly. The top of a head, then shoulders, then the rest of the form. It hadn't approached from the yard. It had been positioned just beneath the window, close enough that it had gone unseen until it chose to reveal itself. It stood only a few feet from the glass, closer than the first one had been. Again, no features, no detail. The outline was intact, but everything inside it was absent. Where the face should have been, there was no interruption in the darkness. It didn't reflect the interior light. It didn't distort. It didn't give anything back. One of them tapped lightly on the glass. A quick decision. A way to confirm something real was there. The response wasn't what they expected. The figure didn't step away, didn't hesitate. Instead, it shifted slightly to the side, adjusting its position so that it remained directly aligned with the person who had tapped. Matching placement. Maintaining position. That was enough. They moved back immediately. Every light in the house was turned on now. Rooms that had been ignored were filled with light. Hallways, corners, spaces that had felt distant now pulled into view. For a brief moment, it created the illusion of control. Then the front door made a sound, a small metallic click. Precise. Everyone turned toward it at once. The handle began to rotate. Slowly. Not forced. Not rushed. It turned part way, then stopped. Held there. As if something on the other side was pausing to feel the resistance. Then it returned. Softly. Back into place. No one moved toward it. No one reached for it. They just watched. A few seconds passed. Then again, the handle turned. Further this time. The latch gave slightly. A small shift in the door. Then it released. The pattern was clear now. This wasn't random. Something was working through the mechanism. From above, a sound. A dull contact against the roof. Then another. Weight settling. The structure responded with a low, drawn-out creak, moving through the ceiling and into the room below. Something was up there. Moving, not stumbling, not searching. Each step placed with control, even spacing, crossing from one side of the house toward the other. They tracked it instinctively, heads turning upward as the sound passed overhead. It paused directly above them, long enough to register. Then continued. Back outside, positions had changed again. One figure remained near the field, another at the side window, and now a third was visible near the rear of the house. Each one placed at a different angle, not clustering, not overlapping, covering. Inside, someone moved from one room into another. As they crossed the space, the figure at the nearest window shifted at the same time, keeping alignment, not guessing, not correcting, already positioned. The front door handle turned again. This time it held longer. The latch pressed inward. The wood of the door flexed slightly under pressure. Not enough to open, but enough to show intent. Then, release. Everything went still again. But the stillness wasn't empty. It felt like something had advanced and was preparing for the next step. By the third hour, The lights no longer felt like protection. Every room had been illuminated for so long that it started to feel wrong. The brightness didn't push anything back. It only made everything inside the house easier to see. Every movement, every position, every person. One by one, without needing to agree on it, they began turning the lights off. The living room went dark first, then the kitchen, then the hallway, until the entire house sat in low shadow, lit only by what little ambient light made its way in from outside. At first, it felt like relief. The glass stopped reflecting so much of the interior. The outside became easier to read. The yard, the tree line, the edges of the property slowly came back into view. For a moment, it felt like an advantage. Then someone moved. Just a small shift, a step taken across the room. Outside, the figure adjusted immediately, not searching, not correcting, already aligned. That was when the realization settled in. The darkness didn't change anything. It only made it harder to understand how they were being found. Inside, no one spoke. They didn't need to. They had all seen it. From that point on, every movement inside the house slowed. People hesitated before shifting position, aware now that even the smallest change was being tracked. Outside, the figures had repositioned again. Not in a way that could be followed, but every time someone looked, one of them was already there, closer than before, near the window, near the door, near the edges of the house where the walls met shadow. They weren't approaching in a straight line. They were working around the structure, learning it. Then, the front door. The handle moved again. In the dark, the sound carried differently. The metal turning was louder now, sharper, more defined. It rotated slowly, further than it had before. The latch released. The door separated from the frame, a thin opening. Darkness pressing inward from the outside. Someone stepped forward immediately, closing the gap and pulling the door shut, holding it in place. This time, the response came without delay. Pressure. Not sudden, not violent. Measured. Consistent. The door pressed inward slightly under the force. The wood shifted. The frame creaked. Whoever was on the other side wasn't forcing entry. They were testing it, feeling where it gave. The person holding the door braced harder, pressing their weight into it. The pressure remained steady. Then it changed. Not stronger, more precise. The force shifted slightly higher along the door, then lower, then centered again, as if whatever was outside was adjusting its point of contact, learning where it mattered. Then it stopped, completely. The pressure vanished. The handle eased back. The door settled. No footsteps, no retreat. Just absence. From above, A faint sound returned. Not movement across the roof this time. Placement. Weight settling directly above the front of the house, above the door. The position aligned. Outside, inside, above, all connected. Inside the house, no one moved. No one spoke. The silence stretched, longer than before, long enough to feel intentional, like whatever was happening had reached a point and was deciding something. Then, nothing. No sound, no movement, no shift in position, just the quiet. Minutes passed, then longer. Slowly, the feeling began to change. Not safer, but empty. The presence that had surrounded the house began to fade. Not all at once, not in a way that could be seen, just gone. One by one, they checked the windows again. Nothing. No shapes at the glass. No movement in the yard. No figures at the tree line. The roof remained silent. The door still. By the time the first light of morning reached the edge of the field, everything outside looked exactly as it always had. Still, normal, unchanged. They stepped outside cautiously. The air felt the same, the ground undisturbed. No tracks, no impressions. No sign that anything had been there at all, until they checked the door. Just above the handle, there was a mark. Not damage, not a scratch. Something else. A faint impression. Shallow, but precise. Placed exactly where pressure had been applied. Exactly where the mechanism had been tested. And whatever had made it had known exactly where to begin. Some encounters leave evidence, others don't. What happened at that farmhouse was never reported. No investigation followed. No explanation was offered. By morning, there was nothing left to prove it had happened. No footprints, no damage. No trace in the field or along the edge of the trees. Just a house, and the people inside it, who all saw the same thing. Thank you for joining us this evening. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more American Nightmares.